Section 6 of Gray's Anatomy, Part 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Laurie Ann Walden. Anatomy of the Human Body, Part 3, by Henry Gray. The Heart, Core. The heart is a hollow muscular organ of a somewhat conical form. It lies between the lungs in the middle mediastinum, and is enclosed in the pericardium. It is placed obliquely in the chest behind the body of the sternum and adjoining parts of the rib cartilages, and projects farther into the left than into the right half of the thoracic cavity, so that about 1/3 of it is situated on the right and 2/3 on the left of the median plane. Size. The heart in the adult measures about 12 cm in length, 8 to 9 cm in breadth at the broadest point, and 6 cm in thickness. Its weight in the male varies from 280 to 340 grams, in the female from 230 to 280 grams. The heart continues to increase in weight and size up to an advanced period of life. This increase is more marked in men than in women. Component parts. As has already been stated, the heart is subdivided by septa into right and left halves, and a constriction subdivides each half of the organ into two cavities, the upper cavity being called the atrium, the lower the ventricle. The heart, therefore, consists of 4 chambers, that is, right and left atria, and right and left ventricles. The division of the heart into 4 cavities is indicated on its surface by grooves. The atria are separated from the ventricles by the coronary sulcus, auriculoventricular groove. This contains the trunks of the nutrient vessels of the heart, and is deficient in front, where it is crossed by the root of the pulmonary artery. The interatrial groove, separating the 2 atria, is scarcely marked on the posterior surface, while anteriorly it is hidden by the pulmonary artery and aorta. The ventricles are separated by 2 grooves, one of which, the anterior longitudinal sulcus, is situated on the sternocostal surface of the heart, close to its left margin. The other, posterior longitudinal sulcus, on the diaphragmatic surface near the right margin. These grooves extend from the base of the ventricular portion to a notch, the incisura apicis cordis, on the acute margin of the heart, just to the right of the apex. The base, basis cordis, directed upward, backward, and to the right, is separated from the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th thoracic vertebrae by the esophagus, aorta, and thoracic duct. It is formed mainly by the left atrium, and, to a small extent, by the back part of the right atrium. Somewhat quadrilateral in form, it is in relation above with the bifurcation of the pulmonary artery, and is bounded below by the posterior part of the coronary sulcus, containing the coronary sinus. On the right it is limited by the sulcus terminalis of the right atrium, and on the left by the ligament of the left vena cava and the oblique vein of the left atrium. The 4 pulmonary veins, 2 on either side, open into the left atrium, while the superior vena cava opens into the upper, and the anterior vena cava into the lower, part of the right atrium. The apex, apex cordis. The apex is directed downward, forward, and to the left, and is overlapped by the left lung and pleura. It lies behind the 5th left intercostal space, 8 to 9 cm from the mid-sternal line, or about 4 cm below and 2 mm to the medial side of the left mammary papilla. The sternocostal surface is directed forward, upward, and to the left. Its lower part is convex, formed chiefly by the right ventricle, and traversed near its left margin by the anterior longitudinal sulcus. Its upper part is separated from the lower by the coronary sulcus, and is formed by the atria. It presents a deep concavity, occupied by the ascending aorta and the pulmonary artery. The diaphragmatic surface, directed downward and slightly backward, is formed by the ventricles, and rests upon the central tendon and a small part of the left muscular portion of the diaphragm. It is separated from the base by the posterior part of the coronary sulcus, and is traversed obliquely by the posterior longitudinal sulcus. The right margin of the heart is long, and is formed by the right atrium above and the right ventricle below. The atrial portion is rounded and almost vertical. It is situated behind the third, fourth, and fifth right costal cartilages, about 1.25 centimeters from the margin of the sternum. The ventricular portion, thin and sharp, is named the acute margin. It is nearly horizontal and extends from the sternal end of the sixth right costal cartilage to the apex of the heart. The left or obtuse margin is shorter, full, and rounded. It is formed mainly by the left ventricle, but to a slight extent above by the left atrium. It extends from a point in the second left intercostal space, about 2.5 millimeters from the sternal margin, obliquely downward, with a convexity to the left, to the apex of the heart. Right atrium, atrium dextrum, right auricle. The right atrium is larger than the left, but its walls are somewhat thinner, measuring about 2 millimeters. Its cavity is capable of containing about 57 cc. It consists of two parts, a principal cavity, or sinus venerum, situated posteriorly, and an anterior, smaller portion, the auricula. Sinus venerum, sinus venosus. The sinus venarum is the large quadrangular cavity placed between the two vena cavae. Its walls, which are extremely thin, are connected below with the right ventricle, and medially with the left atrium, but are free in the rest of their extent. Auricula, auricula dextra, right auricular appendix. The auricula is a small conical muscular pouch, the margins of which present a dentated edge. It projects from the upper and front part of the sinus forward and toward the left side, overlapping the root of the aorta. The separation of the auricula from the sinus venarum is indicated externally by a groove, the terminal sulcus, which extends from the front of the superior vena cava to the front of the inferior vena cava, and represents the line of union of the sinus venosus of the embryo with the primitive atrium. On the inner wall of the atrium the separation is marked by a vertical, smooth muscular ridge, the terminal crest. Behind the crest the internal surface of the atrium is smooth, while in front of it the muscular fibers of the wall are raised into parallel ridges resembling the teeth of a comb, and hence named the musculi pectinati. Its interior presents the following parts for examination: openings: superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, coronary sinus, foramina venarum minimarum, atrioventricular. Valves: valve of the inferior vena cava, valve of the coronary sinus, fossa ovalis, limbus fossae ovalis, intervenous tubercle, musculi pectinati, crista terminalis. The superior vena cava returns the blood from the upper half of the body, and opens into the upper and back part of the atrium, the direction of its orifice being downward and forward. Its opening has no valve. The inferior vena cava, larger than the superior, returns the blood from the lower half of the body, and opens into the lowest part of the atrium near the atrial septum, its orifice being directed upward and backward, and guarded by a rudimentary valve, the valve of the inferior vena cava, eustachian valve. The blood entering the atrium through the superior vena cava is directed downward and forward, that is, toward the atrioventricular orifice, while that entering through the inferior vena cava is directed upward and backward, toward the atrial septum. This is the normal direction of the two currents in fetal life. The coronary sinus opens into the atrium between the orifice of the inferior vena cava and the atrioventricular opening. It returns blood from the substance of the heart, and is protected by a semicircular valve, the valve of the coronary sinus, valve of Thebesius. The foramina venarum minimarum, foramina Thebesii, are the orifices of minute veins, veni cordis minimi, which return blood directly from the muscular substance of the heart. The atrioventricular opening, tricuspid orifice, is the large oval aperture of communication between the atrium and the ventricle. It will be described with the right ventricle. The valve of the inferior vena cava, valvula vena cavae inferioris or Eustachii, Eustachian valve, is situated in front of the orifice of the inferior vena cava. It is semilunar in form, its convex margin being attached to the anterior margin of the orifice. Its concave margin